We have made it to June, and breaking news, Austin's market is starting to show signs of life. No, we haven't yet gotten past all the glut of inventory, but despite all of the negative headwinds that we've had, we're starting to see some positive trends really set place in the market. So let's take a look. Well, all right. This is our very first look at fresh May data. This is just coming in now that we tipped into June. So, right now we have about 5 months of inventory, which quite honestly is a pretty normal market. Now, take into account this is blending in everything from single family homes to condos, townhomes. Once we break it down into different segments, I'll show you it really depends what part of the market you're in, how you're going to feel about it. Some segments are actually heating up pretty nicely, and other segments are still ice cold. So let's break it down in a little more detail. But right now, 5 months of inventory is pretty normal. If we look at supply, the big shift that we've had this year is the orange line is supply. And I know it's going to be hard to see, but right now, and I'll show it to you in a couple more charts, supply is less than we've had last year. It's the first time we have seen supply drop since 2022. So every year we've been building up more and more and more sellers, but not a lot of buyer demand. This is the first year supply has stayed a little less than we saw last year. The opposite has happened on the demand side. Same story. We've had such anemic buyer demand for the past 4 years. It kind of kept dropping through last year. This is the first year we're seeing demand significantly up over last year, at least noticeably up. All 5 months so far have had more sales than we saw in those months last year. So supply coming down a little bit, demand going up a little bit. You're not going to feel it in an amazing way. If you're a seller right now, it's not going to fundamentally change your life, but it can help you, especially in single family homes. In the right locations, they are starting to move faster. So that is overall the market if we look at all 5 counties. So let's look in kind of some niche areas to see how they're trending. So this is Southwest Austin. These are neighborhoods like Circle C, Vanya, Meridian, some of those areas there. You can see they only have 2 months of inventory. So they are selling really well. If you are a seller in those markets, it's overwhelmingly single family homes. Supply is kind of more in line with the 10-year average. It's not overwhelmingly more than we typically have. And demand is also in line with a 10-year average. So this area is moving quite well. If you are a single family seller, if you can get your house ready and list it at a fair price, odds are you can get that home sold within 1 or 2 months. So that's typically what we are seeing in that area. If we look up in kind of Northwest Hills area, this is 78759. Again, mostly single family homes, 3 months of inventory, not quite as aggressive as maybe Southwest, but you're still seeing a very solid market. Supply isn't any higher than we had last year. In fact, it was a little lower in May. Still, though, above, really watch that dotted line. That's the 10-year average. They're still over significantly that 10-year average. So that's why days on market probably take a little longer. But demand is in line with normal times. And we've seen some pretty good demand this year in that area. But that's only so many homes. Here's 78704. This is Zilker Park, Boulden, Travis Heights, obviously a much higher price point. Now you're tipping into luxury, but you also have a mix of condos in there. You have a lot of different things. Well, there's still a heavy buyer's market. They've got almost 10 months of inventory. You got 240 listings and only 19 went pending in May. So way more sellers than you have buyers. Supply, the good news is it's not running away from what we saw last year. In fact, it came down a little bit in May. That's a good thing. But if you look over on the right side, yes, demand is up over last year, but demand was so anemic last year, and it's still well below the 10-year average. So again, depending on what category you look in is really going to dictate, are you in a seller's market, balanced market, or buyer's market? Let's look at a different look at stats. So this is another tool we use, Unlock MLS Stats. So this is looking at Travis, Williamson, and Hayes County. Those are our 3 biggest counties. If we look at pricing, here's where we also have some positive trends. And again, we haven't gotten all the May data in, but number of sales should go up again, agents have to manually go in the MLS and add the data once they sell a house. And especially if they sold one last week, they may not have updated this yet. So I expect the number of sales will go up. So even though it says it's down 11% over last year, I think we're going to see that tighten up over the next week, week and a half. But from a price, so far on the data that has been inputted, price is up. Median sale 2.6%, average sale 2.6%. So again, mostly single family homes, but we are seeing the price at least stay stable, if not improve a little bit in May. I think that is a positive sign. If we look at buyer demand, again, days on market came down just a little bit, and the original price to the eventual close price, again, pretty neck and neck with last year. This is inventory. And again, think of this as single family homes mainly, because 83% of this data is single family homes. We're under 5 months of inventory. That's a balanced market. So 4.8 months of inventory, balanced market. Here's the most important data in May. New listings, meaning supply, how many sellers brought their homes to market, was 17% lower than last year. So you have almost 18% fewer sellers bringing listings to the market. Buyers went under contract almost 10% more than they did last year. So you have more buyers going under contract, fewer listings. That's going to help over time tighten up that supply. Okay, so this is mostly single family homes, and remember, we got 4.8 months of inventory. So we're going to drop this just to condos. I'm going to show you the difference. If I just say, show me the condos in those counties, well, now we have almost 10 months of supply. So the question is, what are you selling? If you're selling a single family home, you're in a good neighborhood, you're in great shape. We're seeing those move. If you are selling a condominium right now, you're struggling. I can tell you in any part of the market, it feels like you're struggling. I think condos, for numerous reasons, have challenges. And it's not that they're a bad product. It's just after COVID, people wanted more space. Well, condos don't always come with outdoor space. Number two, they typically have higher HOA fees because condominiums, the HOA often takes care of the exterior, maybe the roof or the siding or the landscaping. And so a lot of times you have to pay higher HOA fees. Well, what does that do when you have to underwrite a payment? It makes them feel more expensive. And so we're seeing condos take a lot longer to sell or have struggle selling. So pay attention to categories. Where are you at? What zip code are you at? What kind of product? That's why we like to help our clients really break that down. All right, well, let's look back at the market as a whole as we are now entering June. So this is the look at single family homes for sale entering June. And again, this is a supply and demand chart. But if we go back to July of last year, we had 15,860 homes for sale. Let's say almost 16,000 homes for sale. Well, we just wrapped up May with only 14,000. So again, I think we're seeing supply ever so gently tighten up. That is a good sign. We need that. In terms of buyer activity, we're doing okay. 2,900 sales in April. And again, I don't think we've logged all the sales for May. So we'll come back to that here in a minute. But we are heading into the summer. And despite a war and gas prices and interest rates still staying in the mid sixes, there's more buyers buying homes this year than they did last year. And there's fewer sellers bringing listings to the market. That is really the headline. Speaking of interest rates, and again, we've seen these jump all over the place. The bond markets really felt a lot of the inflation pressure, which is keeping bond prices higher. And that impacts the mortgage market. But right now, I'd say we're kind of mid sixes on that. If you're FHA, VA, maybe you're getting a low six. And of course, there are some ways we can get credits from a seller if you're a buyer and bring that interest rate down. If you are listing your house this summer, here is a caveat to remember. Sales, meaning activity, price, that activity typically peaks in the second quarter. We are at the end of the second quarter as we are in June. So right now, buyers are going to be closing for the most part in July, starting this week or next week. You might have a few more buyers write a contract that will close in June, but as we get into the first, second week of June, most buyers are going to look a month out. And of course, they'll see July 4th as well, and they'll push that closing into mid-July. So if you're a seller right now, you are officially in the summer, and most of your buyers are just looking to get a house before the fall. So there's not quite as much pressure to close quickly. So be aware of that. Sometimes it takes a little longer to get summer homes under contract than it does a spring house. If you are a buyer right now, we're at peak inventory, period. Like every week moving forward. And again, I already mentioned there's fewer sellers bringing homes to market this year than last year. I expect that trend to continue because it's really kind of baking in at this point. So this is where you're going to have the most homes for sale. You will see more come to market. Just be prepared. It's not going to be this big wave of listings. You're going to get trickles of listings over the next, 2-4 weeks as more sellers bring their properties to market. Anyways, I hope this was helpful. It's nice to see some positive data come into the market. If you want to check that out and make sure these trends continue, you can follow our YouTube channel at Ryan Kelly Group. Click that subscribe button and you can check us out each and every week. And of course, if you know anybody looking to buy, sell, invest, or finance here in Austin, we would love to talk with you. Anyways, it is summertime. I hope you guys have a great week and talk to you next Monday. Thanks.